You're listening to the Stable Angler, and my daddy is the host.
All right, special thanks to my sweetheart for the introduction. My name is Rick Crawford, and I am the host of the Sustainable Angler podcast and president of Emerger Strategies. If you're new here, this is a podcast whose mission is to educate and inspire anglers to protect what they love. Storytellers have a unique ability to engage and captivate their audience, which is a critical skill set to have when it comes to saving the planet. Which is why I am stoked to share my interview with Steve Duda, who is a writer and the former editor of the Fly Fish Journal, and today is head of Fish Tales at Patagonia. In this episode, we discuss his new book, River Songs, the roles of storytelling when it comes to deadbeat dams, climate change, and why fly anglers are often the tip of the spear when it comes to activism. Steve also shares some stories from the late and legendary John Gierach, and I hope you enjoy. Be sure to check out the website, thesustainableangler.com. And if you enjoy the podcast, an absolutely free way to show your support is by leaving a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. The Sustainable Angler is available anywhere you listen to podcasts and is also airing Saturdays at 2 p.m. on Charleston's first and only community-supported radio station, Home Radio, 96.3 FM. The Sustainable Angler is brought to you by Emerger Strategies and a New Earth Project, the sustainability initiative of Atlantic Packaging.
We set out with a New Earth Project to really start a movement.
It's a global coalition of people who are deeply concerned and want to accelerate the transition away from problematic packaging to more sustainable solutions.
Our entire value proposition was built on helping companies package things better. We were doing sustainability before sustainability was cool. We just called it packaging optimization. And packaging optimization really is about using less. And we built our whole business on that. You know, people send us their products, their goods, and we help them design packaging systems and solutions for the least possible cost, utilizing the least amount of material. Use less is always the right answer.
And that's what I see with companies like a New Earth Project is it's like, we're just trying to create solutions for big companies and small, that makes it easier for them, cheaper for them, whatever it is, and then has less impact. Not just trying to tell people you should have less impact and making the choice forced on them. Like, make it better for everybody, and it'll make it better for the whole world.
We see the problem, and we are with you.
Fly fishing taught me that learning to read a river for trout isn't just about finding fish. It's about understanding an entire ecosystem. At Emerger Strategies, we see this as a perfect metaphor for systems thinking. Each element of the river, from water quality and habitat to the aquatic insects that transform from emergers to adult mayflies, plays a crucial role. And we understand that businesses also play a critical role in the health of the planet. Measuring and improving your company's sustainability performance is the same as protecting your home waters. And responsible business practices ensure that our rivers remain clean, habitats are preserved, and biodiversity thrives for generations to come. Because when you protect what you love, you're not just protecting the planet, you're building a brand that stands for something. At Emerger Strategies, we help your business apply this holistic approach. By integrating sustainability, you not only conserve natural resources, but also create a thriving ecosystem for your business and the planet that you love. Visit our website at emergerstrategies.com to learn more, and let's protect what we love together.
Well, thanks, Rick. I guess the first thing to say is it's nice to be on the show. I've listened to it for, how long have you been on now? You've been on for a while, right?
2018, yeah,
been for a long time. And I know our paths have crossed a couple of times.
Yep.
In what they call the professional
Is that
world
a
of
thing?
fly fishing.
That's
Rick and I
funny.
know each other. Rick and I know each other from my capacity working at Patagonia.
Yeah.
I'm head of fish tails there at Patagonia. Maybe did we do anything while I was at Fly Fish Journal, Rick?
No, but we had like just hung out some. We have mutual friends, and Paul Puckett and the Charleston fly fishing crew, and
That is a heck of a crew. That
yeah,
Charleston fly fishing crew. They're, I guess they're more notorious than famous, but they're they're well known. Let's just leave it at that, I guess.
well, I think I remember there at one of the trade shows or something in Orlando. Yeah, Arena's Sports Pub. That was a classic hang for the fly fishing crew down at the trade show. So
we got after it. It was funny too because my crew from the Fly Fish Journal, we're about as far away as you can get from Charleston.
yeah.
But for some reason, when we met you fellas down there, we kind of hit it off.
There's a lot of similarities. A lot. It's like, yeah. Anyway, we'll get into some of that. But so, head of fish tails at Patagonia, Fly Fish Journal. I mean, I did a little bit of research, but I mean, I've seen things, written some things for MTV. Take us back.
Yeah, I had a career I was a music journalist, an honest to God music journalist for like 20 years, Rick. Let's see. I'll just go backward, right? I'm at Patagonia now. I'm head of fish tails, which means pretty much all the writing that comes out of the fly fish side of Patagonia, I'm typing it, right?
Yeah.
Before that, I was editor of the Fly Fish Journal, which I'm pretty sure everyone who's listening to this podcast knows of the Fly Fish Journal.
Yeah.
I was editor there for 7 years. And prior to that, I was at a little company called Amazon.com, kind of before they got as big and mean as they are now. I was managing editor of the music site.
Really? I didn't know that.
And before that, I was editor of a music magazine called The Rocket, where I covered the Northwest music scene up here, from San Francisco to Vancouver, BC. Before that, I was arts editor at a little thing called the Boise Weekly. And in between, I've fished. I've written for everyone from Fly Fisherman, Fly Rod and Reel, Rolling Stone, San Francisco Bay Guardian, all over the place, Rick. I've just done a lot of typing in my day. My fingers are nubs at this point in my life.
Well, we're all, I am a huge fan of everything that I know you from through the Fly Fish Journal and Patagonia Fly Fish. And I just can't tell you how stoked I am to have you on the podcast.
I forgot, Rick, the latest and greatest deal is my new book.
Yeah, right. Which is
totally forgot about it.
Which is the reason I reached out initially. Anyway, I was like, "Hey, we got to talk about this book."
Yeah, so you get marketing, maybe not my forte. Thank God I can type.
Yeah,
but yeah, new book is called River Songs. It's out on Mountaineers Books. It's been out for like a month now. I'm just sort of overwhelmed by the reception the book has gotten. People seem to really, really like it. It's selling great. And the whole experience, Rick, for me has been like every writer wants a book, right? We all want to put a book out. And I was one of those guys. And now that it's out, it's better than I thought it ever would be, man. It's awesome. The coolest thing to have a book. It really is. I just feel like, holy shit, that's my book.
Yeah, hell yeah.
It just makes everything better, man. It just really does.
Well, and it's also, I imagine it's got to feel like, this is like, no matter what happens, like this is, I left a mark right here, and these are my stories, and
yeah, for real.
Those can be shared, and I think that's really cool.
It is cool too, because fly fishing, we have a history of some pretty darn good books, man. Yeah. Some pretty good guys and women have written about fly fishing. And just to have my book on, you know, a lower shelf of some of these folks is it's really gratifying, you know. So if you've already bought the book, thank you very much. And if you're planning on buying the book, you know what? Go do it right now. Press pause, and we'll see you in about 5 minutes.
Yeah. Let's take a quick book buying break, and we'll be right back.
Okay, welcome back, everybody.
Yeah.
You know, we're on my home water, the Yakima River here in Washington State. We have an abundance of cliff swallows.
Yeah.
And for some reason, they've always captivated me. These are birds that aren't like other birds. They can do things other birds can't do, right? And they're there with us on the river all the time, just doing their thing, right? Mm-hmm. And they seem to embody a lot of the things that we're out on that river for, right? There's a joy about them, just the way they're moving through the sky. They're there for the same things we are, like for the bugs,
right?
And to be on the water, right? And to be with their pals, because you ever rarely see one swallow.
Yeah,
they're always there with their pals, right? Flapping around in the air. And there's just something special about those birds, Rick, that's emblematic to me of fly fishing, right? I always see them when I'm there. And one time in my life, I've had the opportunity to fish in Argentina. And, you know, their seasons are opposite of ours. When it's winter up here, it's summer down there. So I was down there in their summer and our winter. And I was fishing this river. And I'll be goddamned if I didn't see some swallows coming down. And I thought, you know what? Those could be my guys. Those could be my swallows. I could be seeing these guys in a couple of months back on the Yakima.
That's cool. That's cool.
They do make that migration. You know?
Yeah. Well, and I think it speaks to a bigger thing that, you know, everything in nature is interconnected, and it's there's something beautiful in that too.
Absolutely, in so many ways, and swallows are emblematic of that too, Rick. That is a fantastic point, because what happens to those swallows if the caddis go away?
Yeah, right.
What happens to the trout if the caddis go away?
Yeah.
What happens to our sport if those caddis go away, right? And we're facing, you know, I've seen reports lately in the media, I'm sure you have too, Rick, about the loss of insect life, loss of insect biomass along some of our rivers. And that's alarming, man.
Yeah. That is actually pretty crazy. I had a opportunity to talk to some guys from the Salmon Fly Project, and they're like actually putting some science behind some of the stuff. Mm-hmm. And it's wild. They're like, yeah, it's crazy. Like these bug populations are in different areas for a variety of, you know, reasons, but they are declining, which is not great news for trout. But that is. Let's actually talk a little bit more about some environmental threats if we're on the subject. What are some things that are concerning to you personally that you're starting to see and witness? We were kind of talking a minute before the show started, talking about these hurricanes, right? I mean, as we speak, you know, what's concerning to me is the fact that we've got a Hurricane Milton is intense. It's called rapid intensification is what I understand it. And it went from a tropical storm to 95 mile an hour winds in less than 24 hours. And it's currently a Cat 5. So like that to me and sort of my neck of the woods in the Southeast, that is like obviously top of mind for me right now. Mm-hmm. But I didn't know you're in the Pacific Northwest, or the things that you see out there that are top of mind for you.
You know, that I don't live in the Southeast like you do. So hurricanes are a bit of an abstraction. to me. We see it on the television. We try to feel what you guys are up to try to have some empathy for what you guys are going on to, but it's not something we understand. I've never seen the effects of a hurricane living up here in Seattle. I just haven't.
Mm-hmm.
But what I do see almost every year now is intense wildfire smoke, which we never used to have that much. But now people are saying, well, that's the new normal. I've heard that phrase used to describe what's happening with these hurricanes too. Well, these bigger storms, these storms that rapidly intensify, these storms with bigger storm surges, that's the new normal. I think that's bullshit.
Yeah.
That's not the new normal. That's called climate change.
Yeah. These
right?
are,
That's called climate change. And to whitewash it with a phrase like the new normal, it just, we just started this podcast, but it's making my blood boil, Rick. I'm not kidding. I was listening to the news the other day, and they were talking about this hurricane. And they said that there's these theories going around that people are like blaming not climate change on the hurricane, but blaming they're saying that the deep state is manipulating the weather.
Right. Yeah. Well, that must be it.
Are you kidding me?
I mean, all you can do is laugh. I mean, how ridiculous.
All right. Is that really what we're up against?
Yeah, I think it is. I think that this is sort of the depths of where some people are willing to go, except to just understand and I know, by the way, everyone, as we're doing this, we're coming in pretty hot right now, but we're going to talk more about the book too. But while we're on the subject of this, it's like, you know, this has been laid out for a long time. That according to the best available science, that these are the types of things that we will start to see. And initially,
yeah, this is not new news. We've been hearing that this is what's going to happen for how long?
For years and years and years.
Right.
They've been saying that you're going to see the intensity and frequency of storms. Okay, hurricane, check, right? Hurricane Helene. Now you got Milton, Cat 4, Cat 5s, basically back to back. It's crazy. And actually, Helene has just ravaged Western North Carolina, the Asheville area, parts of Tennessee, Georgia. I mean, I know people who live up there. I mean, it has wiped out entire towns. It is crazy. And so I grew up in Savannah. Okay. So I'm used to hurricanes. We always evacuated to Athens to get away off the coast. Some people just go to Statesboro. Anyway, like you don't have to go very far. Mm-hmm. We never thought that a hurricane would push that far inland. Mm-hmm. I mean, that I don't remember that happening in my lifetime. And so these are all things that they said it was going to happen. It's happening, and it's happening in real time. And so I think that's the difference is it was initially, I think however many years ago, it was like in 100 years, I was like, oh, whoa, shit. Now it's happening now. And so I you know, it is climate change. You're seeing the wildfires in the Pacific Northwest. We're seeing hurricanes, crazy amounts of rain down here also, like just saturated with rain.
Correct me if I'm wrong here, Rick, my really remedial knowledge of what caused it, but it's high ocean temperatures that really contribute, right? And that's also a symptom of a warming planet, right?
Correct. And way above average normal. The Gulf ocean temperatures are way above average. So it's happening. It's here, everyone. Newsflash. This is really happening. And I guess from your perspective, Steve, as a storyteller and a writer and an editor, I mean, how do you bring stories like this to light for so that people understand. I mean, like how does that work for you? What is that process like when you see this kind of stuff?
I mean, you're okay. You're right, Rick. We are coming in hot here. I love the way you put that. But as a journalist, as a sort of journalist, I guess, there is a duty, right, to report on this stuff. The tough bit is you don't always want to be telling bad news, right?
Right.
You don't always want to be Debbie Downer. You don't always want to be a bummer. And sometimes you have to work to find the wins.
Yeah.
Which is super important. Not only just to tell people about the wins, but to prove that we can have wins.
Yeah.
Yesterday, I was looking through, my regular internet feed, just going about my business, looking at my regular news feed. And I came across a win that it made my heart jump. I can't remember what the source was, but someone reported that they had seen wild salmon swimming in the Klamath River above Iron Gate Dam and that would be the first time in 100 years that has happened.
That's awesome.
And I've been on that story about the Klamath River dams, that dam removal project, for 4 or 5 years. I went down to that river and I spoke to the folks in Trout Unlimited who were working on it. I spoke to the folks who were opposed to it. And I spoke to the folks in the tribes, specifically the Yurok tribes, who have been engaged in a decades-long battle to bring those dams down, and to have that river reconnected meant everything to those folks. And I am so happy to know that not only are those dams down, but what's happening based on science is what they said would happen. And it's the same thing that happened with another win that we've had here up in Washington State on the Elwha River.
No.
We took down those dams and guess what happened? Just what the scientists said would happen. Those salmon came back.
That's incredible.
So like while we raise red flags and raise alarms about climate change, it's also super important for us to highlight the wins.
Yeah.
Got to have that balance, man. Got to show people that the work they do on the ground, whether they're going to a boring ass meeting, whether they're writing a check, or whether they're out protesting, waving a sign around, it works. We can have wins.
And I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, or maybe this is just my opinion, but I think that is something that Patagonia does so well, is bringing the activism to the table, right? And delivering a story, and it's storytelling to me. I think that's like the biggest thing that makes Patagonia special, or one of the things, is the storytelling. It is stories that you can remember and that you're like, oh, all right, well, what can we do about it? And you can do something about it.
Right. And it goes a little deeper than that too, Rick. Yvon Chouinard, the guy who owns this company, he gave it away a couple of years ago. And now all the profits go toward conservation groups trying to save this planet, right? Trying to reconnect rivers, trying to stop climate change, trying to stop the warming of this planet. So I don't like to make this connection super obvious, but selling the best waders that we can make helps salmon in a way.
Yeah.
Right? So I always think about that when I wake up in the morning. Sometimes I don't feel like going to work.
Right.
I don't have to think about selling waders. I can think about maybe saving a salmon, saving a steelhead. Right.
And so going, just if we can dive in a little bit deeper, because I feel like my audience, it is all over the country, but strong constituency in the Southeast. Can you elaborate just a little bit in case there's some folks who aren't privy to the dam removals and that battle of what's been going on these last few years?
Yeah, well, we're engaged in a fight right now. We've had a couple wins, as I mentioned, on the Elwha and the Klamath, two really large salmon rivers. And now our focus is shifting toward 4 dams on the lower Snake. And these dams basically block hundreds of miles of salmon-bearing habitat. They don't do anything. These are deadbeat dams, basically. And so it's, we definitely want to get those dams out to help save wild salmon and steelhead. There's 2 dams, the Columbia Basin is blocked by more than 200 dams. Think about that, 200 dams in the Columbia Basin, not just on the Columbia, but on the tributaries too, which is the places these fish swim up to spawn. 200 dams in one river basin, and they block like 1,400 miles of spawning habitat. That's tough to wrap your head around.
Right.
So there's one dam, Columbia's Grand Coulee Dam on the Columbia, and the Snake River's Hell's Canyon Dam block 1/3 of all salmon habitat in the Columbia River Basin. 1/3. So
it's just kind of like, I mean, like to try and for me to wrap my head around that. And I think about a deadbeat dam and like what that does, like the way that I sort of, it makes sense to me is to think of it in terms of like, it's like a blocked artery. Like that it's not allowing the natural flow of what should be and allow natural processes to happen, including salmon spawning that has been going on for however many thousands of years.
Right.
And this is relatively new development, right? I mean, they were dammed in the last 150 years, probably. I mean,
yeah, for sure. They've been damming rivers on the West Coast for a long time, like you said, for 150 years. But on the Columbia, the last one went in and at the Dales, right? And that was in the 40s or 50s, I think. So, and we can see just looking at this historical records, what has happened to our salmon populations. They've just plummeted, man. So just to bring it home and make it a little personal for you. Imagine going out to fish for redfish, and you guys do well out there for redfish. You probably hook up a couple of them each time you go out, right? Boating a couple of them. It ain't that way for steelhead out here, for wild steelhead. A grab is a good day. A couple grabs is a good day. Grabbing, catching a wild steelhead is a day to remember. And what really hits home for me when I go fishing for steelhead is the same sad joke is always told before we hit the water. Hope I'm not the guy who catches the last one. That's where we're at, Rick. We want to stop telling that joke.
Yeah, right.
There's a piece in the book about carping on the Columbia River. And carping is fun. I like it. It's kind of like budget bone fishing, right? You're on foot, you're stalking these fish. They're big, they're powerful, they're hard to catch. But we're on the Columbia River between 2 dams in a stagnant, barely moving, warm sort of reservoir thing. The Columbia River used to be the greatest salmon river on this planet. And what are we doing now? We're wading around in warm water between 2 dams. It's bullshit.
Well, yeah, it is, and in the book too. I mean, even Lewis and Clark had made reference to the volume of salmon they were seeing, right? I mean, if I remember correctly from you referenced that that was, you know, prolific. And I was talking to someone, I was doing an interview on the podcast with someone, and we were talking about similarly some of the first Europeans who came to the Low Country was the same thing. They were like, "Oh my God, this is paradise."
Mm-hmm.
Like the fish are abundant, the wildlife is abundant. They couldn't believe it,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like it's been this steady decline, and you accelerate it, putting in dams, and you're carp fishing in one of the most prolific salmon run of the last 10,000 years. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's just sort of insulting that, you know, these fish, we should be able to go out, we should have abundance.
Yeah.
And we've forgotten, as you're hinting at, Rick, we've forgotten what abundance looks like.
Yeah.
We have to go to the ends of the earth now to see what abundance looks like. If you've never stood in a Alaskan river and seen what a real salmon run looks like, where these fish are coating the bottom of the river, hitting your legs as they're running up, that's what abundance looks like. That's what we should be able to experience instead of these spectral runs.
Agreed. But let me ask you, just kind of back on the book a little bit. I mean, what was the inspiration to decide to write river songs with your sort of prolific career? What inspired you to publish it now?
I got lucky, you know. I had all these pieces from, you know, writing about fly fishing for 20 years or so. I think around that long. I don't know. And I was given a chat at this thing called the Outdoor Writers Association of America, and I was just talking about sort of best practices for writers, what editors look for, you know, how to do the damn thing, as they say. And the editor-in-chief of Mountaineers Books approached me and said, "You know what? I'd love to put out a book of yours." And I said, "Come on." Who are you really? But it was legit. She was the actual editor in chief, and you know, we formed our relationship, and I worked on getting these pieces together. Pieces that had appeared previously, I rewrote extensively, and I wrote a bunch of new pieces as well. And it was my COVID project. I worked on this darn thing throughout COVID, and a little bit afterward. And it was a great experience. It required a sort of discipline that I was glad I was able to find within myself to do, because it's a lot of work, man. It really is. But like I said just a little bit ago, it's really worth it. It was really worth the effort.
Well, that's awesome, and also the illustrations are incredible in it too. That adds a lot of flavor to it.
I love the illustrations. I'm going to give a shout out to my man Matt Delorme, who did those. If you haven't seen the book, all the illustrations are woodcuts, and he created one woodcut for each of the longer pieces in the book. The book is divided into 14 long pieces and 14 shorter pieces. And those are what I call the river songs, the shorter pieces. But Matt did 14 of the pieces, or 14 woodcuts for the 14 long pieces, and he did the cover. And if you've ever seen someone actually produce a woodcut, it's not easy. But what I love about the form is you can sense the human hand creating this thing. You can see that a human being spent hours hunched over that wood block, and you can just get a sense of the real essence of the craft it took to create this piece of art. And Matt is a master craftsman. He is absolutely fantastic at what he does, and these pieces add a rawness and a soulfulness that really match what I was trying to evoke in a lot of these pieces. So he just knocked it out of the park, and I couldn't be happier to have him be a part of that project. And I think now, forever, his images and these words are going to be connected.
Yeah.
In a way that, they'll never be unbound, right? So that's super cool.
Yeah, I love that. All right. So we have talked about, we came in hot, as we said. we came in hot. We went climate. We went dam. We almost forgot to talk about the book. But I do, just as I feel like this is like a rare opportunity that I'm getting here. I'm grateful for it to get to talk to you. So I want to pick your brain a little bit about just kind of your thoughts on the connection between fly fishing, conservation, and activism. What is it about fly anglers that make us more prone to be activists? Or maybe that's just I don't know. Maybe that's not fair, but it seems like it's a generalization that holds some truth.
Well, Rick, you're right. We are the tip of the spear often. And I have a theory as to why. And it's because we, as fly anglers, get a chance to experience wonder in a way that normal people do not. We, as fly anglers, our sport takes place in epic geographies. We are confronted by nature's most dramatic scenes regularly. If things go right, we get to have a connection with one of nature's most incredible, compelling, mysterious creatures. And then we get to let it go. So we understand in a way that maybe non-anglers don't how powerful, how gorgeous, how awesome this planet can be. We're out there doing it. We get to see it. We get to experience. We get to breathe it in, right? We deal in enormity. We deal in immense things. We deal in stuff that is epic all the time. You're not getting that playing pickleball.
Right.
You're not getting that on the golf course.
Yeah.
Right? That doesn't happen in a bowling alley. But for us, that's our home field. Right? That's where we play ball.
Yeah.
So we are able to make friends with these places. It's easy for us to feel protective of them.
Mm-hmm.
And by God, we protect what we love, don't we?
Yeah.
No matter
Yeah.
what it is. So that's why it's easy for us to be conservationists, for us to care about rivers, about fish, about the watersheds, about the shorelines, about the bays, about the estuaries, because we know what happens there. You might be able to look at it in a picture or see a picture of it on a website and read a headline about how the estuaries are shrinking, the water's warming. That's an abstraction. You don't know what it is until you've put your feet in that estuary, till you've poled across it, maybe, till you've met somebody who lives in that estuary, one of those fish. Till you understand what the tides do. All those things, all those intimate details, the things that the swallows, a silly bird like the swallows, you fall in love with that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't imagine a life without that. So it's not then when you have those experiences that we do as fly anglers, it's not a choice anymore. You don't choose, oh gosh, I think I'm going to choose to be a conservationist now that I'm a fly angler. It doesn't happen like that. You don't have a choice. You just are. Because now you have a higher level of understanding. You know it intimately.
Yeah.
And it becomes yours. You are protective of it.
Yeah, it's so true. I mean, that's when I first got into fly fishing, it was learning about entomology that drew me in that made me understand that that bug was connected to a trout, that was connected to a river ecosystem, that was connected to everything else. And that when I started getting into saltwater fly fishing, then you're getting out of space, right? Then you're going, this is actually affected by the moon.
Mm-hmm.
And there really are these connections that that I don't know where else you can get them. I don't know that you can understand these sort of connections in the way that the wind can affect things and the moon phase and for me personally, it's I'm currently obsessed with tarpon. I'm never more in the present moment than even if it's just for one jump. Like everything goes away and you are fully present in the moment. And those are hard to come by with all the distractions in the world today. Those moments of purity and wonder and the things that you see when you're out on the water and but then when you are dialed and you're hooked and it just fully present. It's really a beautiful thing.
Mm-hmm. And it's not just one thing. It's more things than we can perceive. You mentioned the bugs. Like when you become a fly angler, you have an appreciation for bugs
Right.
that normal people would think, what's wrong with you? Are you okay?
How much time do you have?
I mean, I spent hours thinking about swallows to write that piece. There's just so many things that connect us.
Yeah.
To the water, to the fish, to the sport. I guess maybe the fishing itself is just the gateway drug.
Yeah, right.
It's just like I don't know. It's just, it just opens, it blows the doors off, right?
Yes, it does. Okay. Well, we came in hot. We got deep. now, let's see what else can we cover here? No. Well, I guess maybe how has telling these stories, and maybe we kind of talked about this a little bit, but how do you think storytelling can influence the future of fly fishing and conservation and activism?
Stories exist to get people interested in a certain thing. And we need people interested in what's happening to the planet right now. We need people interested who are interested in living on it, right?
Yeah.
But storytelling and fly fishing go hand in hand. And I think in terms of that, we're in good shape. We've got a current crop of fly fishing writers artists, photographers, like we've never had before, I don't think. And I'm saying that after, a few days after one of our greatest storytellers ever passed, John Gierach. And he set the table for guys like me, who were able to think, well, shoot, maybe I can do that because of his example, because of his storytelling. When I was just learning to fish, I didn't have anyone to teach me. But Gierach's books were that uncle, that mentor, that guy who gently guided me through this confusing world. Even though he wasn't really a how-to, where-to guy, I was able to pick up some hints from him.
Yeah.
He aligned the fence posts. So having storytellers explain to us what it is we love, and having painters illustrate for us the wonder of where we are and what we do, having photographers document our sport. These are things that draw people in. These are things that help explain the why to the rest of the world. These are things that maybe translate that notion of wonder to them and maybe spark a little bit of curiosity. And once we get them, Rick, once we get them on the business end and they're hooked, not many of them jump off, man.
Yeah. You're pretty much a lifer. It's
Exactly.
Well, and it's something you can actually do. Like it's not playing football, it's something that you can pretty much do forever. Right?
Yeah. I mean, I came late to fly fishing.
I was going to ask, how did you end up getting into fly fishing to start?
I mean, I didn't start until I was in my 20s, right?
Me too.
I grew up in Detroit, and I ended up in Boise, Idaho. And that's where I learned to fly fish in my 20s. And one of the first people I met on the river was this old guy. And we became friends. And that's one of the things that fly fishing can do. It can bring people who would normally not be friends together in ways that are genuine.
Yeah.
I never thought I'd be friends with an old guy. I didn't even think about it. It's not that I had anything against old guys, just weren't in my circle, right?
Right.
Now, but all of a sudden, I'm like real friends with this guy who is in his 70s. Like let's go have a beer. Let's go have 5 beers. And that guy taught me shit that I would never have learned had we not been friends. And now 30 some years later, I'm getting to be an old guy. Right. And I can still learn from a young guy who's doing the same thing I'm doing and seeing the river the same way I'm seeing it, or maybe he's seeing it in a different way and he can share that with me. So to me, that's one of the joys of our sport is that interconnectedness of people. It just brings people together in weird, authentic, genuine ways.
Yeah, I love that. So
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Well, in terms of like, where I started, Boise River flows right through downtown Boise. And I remember buying my first fly rod. I lived across from one of the West's great 3G stores. I don't know if you guys know it. I'm sure you do. Gold, guns, and guitars is what they sold. This was like a combination pawn shop, taxidermy store.
Yeah, I know. Same store, different name. Yeah, we got them down here too.
So this was like right across the street from my house, from the little apartment that I was living in. And I would walk in there all the time just to see, because it was like, a spaceship. So I'd walk in there all the time. And one day he had a fly rod on the wall with a reel, with a line, and it was $75. And I was broke as a joke. I had $50 to my name. And I said, buddy, I got $50. And he said, I want you to have it. And he even threw in a woolly bugger, a caddis, and a royal coachman.
Nice.
To this day, I've never caught a single trout on a royal coachman.
I haven't either.
What the hell are those things?
I know that.
I did catch my first ever trout on that woolly bugger, so there was some worth to it. But yeah, $50 fly rod on a pawn shop wall in Idaho. That's how I got my start. God love them.
That's incredible. And I love that it was like, yeah, well, I'm obviously going to spend the last $50 I have. I mean, I'm not going to walk out of here without this. Like,
I mean, I wasn't making the greatest decisions at that time in my life.
So what was sort of the progression like? Like it kind of just trading stories. I mean, yeah. I mean, I remember the first fly rod I bought. I was in my 20s, got into fly fishing, was trying to, and bought a used guide rod from a shop in Jackson, and it was like one of the demos or something. It was like,
Probably a pretty good stick then.
Yeah, it was actually.
Mine was hot garbage, man.
Yeah. This was actually a pretty nice one, and I think it was like $100, but it was big. That was big money for then. Like
right
a lot
there
of money.
with you, right there with you.
But to your point, to sort of bring this back of like John Gierach, and like when I was trying to get into it and like learn about it, like those books to me were like, I started to understand the language and just like kind of started to understand like, oh, okay. And then like you pick little things up, or you would hear someone say something that you read in the book and you're like, oh shit, that's what that was.
Right. Or even like how to act.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Etiquette, like what it means to be a fly. Like he was, I don't know any fly angler who's ever talked shit about John Gierach. Right. And I will tell, look, I've got a couple Gierach stories.
Yeah, let's hear them.
My favorite one was the idea that, the opportunity I got to actually edit a couple of his pieces as editor of the Fly Fish Journal. I wanted him in the magazine so bad, and I pestered his ass. And he didn't like to be contacted. He was, didn't want anyone bugging him, basically, which I get. I'm like that. But I finally got a hold of his email address, right? And he didn't like to answer in his emails. I think he might have had someone answer him for him, but whatever. But I remember his email was like, dude, no box. So that was his email address. Anyways, that means nothing. So I would send him a couple of emails. And finally, after like 3 or 4, he got back to me. And he said, I got a piece that I'm working on that's going to be for my next book. And this will be motivation for me to get it done. And I'll send it to you in about a week. So finally came over the transom. And as editor of Fly Fish Journal, you can imagine I read a lot of pieces. A lot of them were really, really shitty.
Sure.
And so, those ones obviously didn't make it into the magazine. The ones that did required some work. Everyone needs a little help in the grammar. Everyone maybe a little help in the structure, maybe a couple word choices here and there. Does that headline really ring right? Does the ending land? There's always something an editor can do or thinks he can do. Gierach's piece came in, and I remember reading it and being like, this is awesome. This is awesome. But then I got to work. I'm like, okay, let's edit this piece. John Gierach was the only writer who didn't require one correction, one edit, one word change. His pieces came in immaculate, right? No other writer ever did that.
That's unreal.
Not even close. That tells you what a craftsman this guy was. That tells you how dedicated he was to his craft. Because I will tell you that to write a good publish-worthy piece for the Fly Fish, you have to rewrite that thing 10 times, 20 times, right? And then the editor will get his hands on it, and you're going to have to do it again another 5 times. So with that, what he did was, to this day, it's remarkable to me. Absolutely remarkable. Not a thing had to be changed. That was John Gierach.
And that only happened once. That's the only time it ever happened.
Well, here's the thing. I think I may have published 4 or 5 of his pieces. All 4 or 5 of his pieces were that good. Not one thing changed, Rick.
Oh my God.
That's pitching a no-hitter 4 or 5 times in a row.
Right.
That doesn't happen.
Right.
So as a mere mortal, I stand in awe of Gierach's talent. Yeah.
Yeah. What a legend.
Yeah. That's the way to describe him. Legend. He is. He really is. I mean, there's big names who have written fly fishing books. Jim Harrison.
Yeah.
Norman McLean. Raymond Carver wrote about fishing. And people love them. People love those books, right? But there's something about Gierach that's different, right? The love and the closeness people felt to him as a writer is a rare thing. There's a kinship that you felt with Gierach.
Yeah. You felt like you were like when he was going on a trip and you felt like you were sitting with him, like having coffee in the morning.
And you know, writers will say, "Oh, it just flows out of me when I get going. It just no, it doesn't, man. That's not how it works. To get that familiarity, to be able to evoke those feelings that he did, takes work. And I can imagine how he sweated over those pieces of his. Doesn't happen by mistake. He had to work to be that good.
Wow. That's a beautiful tribute to John Gierach.
That's my Gierach story.
Well, what about river songs? Where can people pick up copies of this?
Well, I'll tell you what, you can pick it up pretty much everywhere. It's at those big .com sites that you've all heard of. My publisher, Mountaineers, is an independent publisher. And they're a nonprofit publisher. They give I don't know what they do with the profits. They who knows? But I think they're a B Corp.
Oh, really? That's cool.
But the cool thing about it is and what I love about my publisher so much is that they're small enough where I feel like I'm part of a team. I'm part of a family. But they're big enough where my book is everywhere you might want to find it. Right? It's that perfect sort of combo. So, you know, if you go looking for it, you'll find it. If you want me to sign a copy for you, I will do that. All you need to do is go to my website, stevedudawrites.com, click a couple buttons, send me some magic money, and I will grab a book from a box, grab a little padded envelope. I'll write your address on the envelope, and I'll sign my name and give you a little note, and then I'll walk to my post office here in West Seattle, and I'll give it to the guy, and I'll pay him $4.63 postage, and he will send it to you, and you'll get it in like 4 or 5 days.
Okay. Well, I know I'm going to do that. Whenever
I just did it today. $4.63 it costs to send it, but I'm offering free shipping.
That's a steal these days. The shipping gets you.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
you're all my people, so that's why I do what.
Yeah. Of course. Well, Steve, I would be remiss if I feel like, I mean, I run into you from time to time, but this is kind of I appreciate your time. I've admired your work for a long time. So
thanks, Rick. Same here. You've carved out a corner in this industry that's important and it's been needed. And I think you've raised awareness across the board in this industry. And I think because you exist, because of your efforts, this industry has raised the bar.
No, don't. That's
So
not,
I think, let me finish. So I think that, you're going to be modest and you're going to poo-poo me here, but I think that folks should know that you've done a lot. And I think I'm going to speak for everyone who's listening to this podcast. We're grateful for you, and we're glad that you're here, and we're glad that you're part of our little gang.
Well, I'm flattered and I appreciate the kind words, but it's the storytellers like yourself and the folks that are out there that really have the real talent. They're the ones changing minds. So
we all got a row to hoe, Rick.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. This is true. Well, I do want to ask before we go, because we have talked a little bit of fishing, but I didn't get specifics about fishing with you. And since this is a fishing podcast, it makes sense to ask, what do you like to fish for?
Honestly, I'm an omnivore.
Yeah, is that right?
Wherever I am, wherever I'm fishing, I am down.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
But gun to head, I got to choose. You're like, Steve-O, you got 5 days to live. One of them you can spend fishing. Where do you want to go? Like, take me to South Andros and put me in a skiff with one of those guys down there, one of those guides, and have him pull me around for a day and have me pull me around for a half a day and have me walk around for a half a day.
Yeah.
I'll die happy.
Yeah,
I love that. But you know what? I also love, we're about to start our steelhead season. Well, here, and all day long, I've been thinking about stepping into a run on the Hoh River, swinging flies for steelhead, right? I just had a couple buddies get back from fishing in Montana for trout. I see one of Paul's paintings about tarpon fishing. These canvases that he's putting out lately.
They're unbelievable.
I don't know what that guy's putting in his Cheerios lately, man, but holy shit. He's painting some stuff right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it just gets back to the fact that whatever I'm fishing for, that's what I want to be fishing for. I just want to be fishing, right?
And as a follow-up to that, since we're talking about, you said it earlier, people protect what they love, right? And this is kind of the premise of this podcast. What is it that you love about fly fishing?
I mean, I just wrote a whole goddamn book about it, Rick.
Best answer ever.
I mean, I love everything about it, really. And boring answer that you've heard before, but I love the people. I love the places. I love it. It sounds cliche. It sounds sort of sentimental, but goddamn it, it's true.
Yeah.
Is it the greatest sport on the planet? For me, it is.
Yeah.
I love watching football, but it's not fly fishing.
Yeah.
I love riding mountain bikes. Ain't fly fishing. I'm sure if I lived, in Southern California, I'd love surfing. Surfing's pretty cool, though.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet.
But for fly fishing is just special. I think we know it. But it's just special.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that that might be the note we end on.
Special.
Yeah.
Special sports for special kids.
For special people.
Special people. That's us, buddy. We're the special ones.
We're the special ones. The special fly anglers.
Well, it's great to chat with you, my man.
All right. Well, special thanks to Steve Duda for everything that he is doing with his writing and storytelling to protect what we all love. And if you enjoy the podcast, an absolutely free way to support the show is by leaving it a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcast or Spotify. It's a chance to tell me what you love about the show, and it helps others discover it too. I'll also mention that there is some The Sustainable Angler merchandise still available on the website that have been thoughtfully procured and packaged with zero plastic, organic cotton, and cotton that is made 100% from dirt to shirt in North Carolina. Thanks for listening, and stay tuned for new episodes dropping every month.